it's not necessarily about the perfection, but the proportion and keeping life proportionate. Maybe if all of you could kind of share about your rituals, about kind of your bounce back in after a failure, like how long do you dwell on that and then quickly get into happiness or the next phase? So, and we'll start with you, Hannah, and then come on down.
Well, I think I kind of conveyed I'm a big dweller. Things get stuck in my head for a long time, and I like what you mentioned at the beginning about how we sometimes take things personally that really are just business or just directly project related. But if you know that you are in the right place at the right time, or if you have that internal fire, that gut instinct about what you're doing, that you know you're on the right path, that you're on to something, it makes it much easier to bounce back.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think in my experience, in my earlier career, I would dwell and I'd get stressed out and I'd yell and I'd get frustrated and I'd get pissed off and all those negative feelings. And then as I started to see that, I was more aligned with a bigger purpose of why I was doing what I was doing and taking it on more as a learning process and trying to get better. Then I started to look at it as like, okay, well, I got to make that mistake anyway. So it's made, it's done. Don't dwell on it. Learn what you can do better the next time. So my process now is a lot smoother. So it's actually, happiness is the way you see what you want to get out of the process. And if you dwell on it too much, that's where the negativity comes in. So now I just get rid of it.
Okay. Sooner the better.
Yeah.
Kyle.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think, the less time you can spend dwelling on it and instead even asking some other team members or, kind of getting the ball rolling again is the best way to look at it. I don't think, and inherently we don't design for ourselves most of the time. We're designing for someone else. So it's kind of putting ego and thoughts aside of what you think is right and really looking at the client or who you're designing for as inspiration to move it forward.
I think failure really stings when you overpromise and underdeliver. I think especially when you are hit up against an ROI and you need to bring on clients. How do you communicate to a client that maybe this is a little bit risky, this is there's a potential, how do you communicate potential of failure in a project going from the get-go?
I could jump in on that one. I think at the end of the day, it's really the expectation overall, right? So, the client has a really high expectation. And that, like, for instance, I'll give you a great example. And this was probably one of my biggest failures that I knew was going to happen, right? So 2014, I'm doing the Avicii campaign for Winter Music Conference for his entire 1 week during Ultra. And so this was my third year doing it, right? So I had gotten better, right? So I was hitting my stride into my third year, and then he tells me, he's like, listen, I want you to build a billboard for me on Collins and 17th. And I was like, what? How you want to do that? I was like, there's no way. Like, he sent me the drawings, and they were 19-foot panels. So I told him, I was like, there's no way that you can do this late in the game. There's no permits, there's nothing. There's no way we can do it. He goes, well, I don't pay you to not know how to do it. You have to figure it out. And I was like, well, I know there's a huge possibility that I will not pull this off. So I'm gonna need bail money. I'm gonna need to know that if I don't pull it off, that you're not gonna be mad at me, but I will try it if you want me to try, but I'm telling you that it's not gonna happen. And he forced me to do it, and he was like, you gotta try it. Like, he gave me, the budget was there, so that's always great. We attempted it, and obviously I failed because I got stopped 3 times in the process. But I did have a plan B. So I had a plan B that wasn't as grand as his initial expectation, but you take the risk and you take the reward accordingly. And then that year was I was hoping to accomplish his campaign at a 99% success rate because I had pulled off everything he asked me to do, with that exception. And then he didn't even perform, so I felt better. So whatever.
How about you, Lynn? Expressing kind of the potential risk in going into a project and expressing the potential of failure.
Yeah. I think if you know up front that there is the potential for risk, potential for failure, just say so. Bring your client along with you on that journey. If this is something that has a potential to go somewhere you've never gone before and be great, get them excited about it too. Bring them along with you so that they understand we're going to try some things here. We're going to jump off a ledge. I've got a lot of research to do on that, but I'm going to figure it out. I've had to take that approach and mental attitude to a lot of design challenges that come my way where I've never done something that way before. I wouldn't know, but I'll figure it out. Give me some time. Let me make some calls. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, no, I think that's the hardest thing is to have someone trust that you will figure it out and you'll figure the right thing out for pushing the limit or pushing the boundaries on a project. And I think just getting them to, if they have confidence in you, and I think inevitably they hired you for a reason, and so I think that's probably the reason why, is because they don't want something that's the typical standard solution. So,
what do you think is worse, a personal failure or a professional failure? Just quickly, which one is maybe what the knife cuts deeper on a personal
if
or
I'm following the thread of my message today, I think I was the most afraid of a professional failure.
Professional failure.
And froze me in place for a while until I realized that why am I afraid of this?
Got it. And Amir,
Yeah,
professional or personal?
I think for me they're both bad. I'm good at both. So, but they always in the in my personal, it's more goal purpose related. So I have to fail. So I'm okay now. Now I'm more okay with that now. In the professional world, they say you're only as good as your last gig. So it's not really good to fail professionally because that's a stat. So you hold that stat and it's like, oh, you didn't do too well on that project. Like, So it's kind of like professionally, you can go through a slump. It's like the stock market. If you have that failure and you can't recover, or you just, you set that expectation or whatever, and you don't do too well, your stock drops and nobody's hiring, nobody's calling you, and you're out there knocking on doors and trying to design people's business cards.
Right.
yeah, I think they both kind of go hand in hand in a way and are equal. I think most design is pretty personal for everybody, and I think that it's hard to separate those two. But I would say whether it's personal or professional, I think they're pretty equal.
There you go. Super. Maybe this is a great opportunity to open up to the floor. Any questions out there? Have mics running around?
This question goes to any three of the panelists. What would you say was your biggest failure as far as your career goes? Like, what was, maybe you misspelled something on a major banner, or you accidentally advertised vodka on Cartoon Network at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. What was something that you did that was your biggest failure that now you bounce back in as a learning experience?
I have a project that haunts me to this day that I had such an exciting vision for, and I wanted it to work so bad, and through all of these layers of reasons, which I'm not going to get into, it's a dud, and it's still up there, and it makes me so sad because I just knew the potential behind it, and it didn't have, I don't know if it wasn't the right time or the right client or the right resources, but I would say that you end up with a project or two that you just can't leave behind.
Yeah, earlier in my career, I made a bunch of mistakes. The funniest one was I had a client who I was doing all of their creative, their printing, you know, whatever this client needed. He had many clubs in Miami, and he had me like I was just like a machine, right? So now I'm like just producing, creating, and then the timelines in Miami, it's like everything's, you know, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, so I'm rushing. So anyway, so I designed the stuff, printed it, put it out on the street, and then he calls me up. He goes, "Hey, shithead." I was like, "What?" I was like, "I'm doing all this for you. What happened?" He's like, "My flyers are on the street, and it's promoting last year." And I was like, "Oh, wow." I was like, "That slipped." So I was in charge of his creative. He trusted me to the point where he would be like, "I'm doing this, get it done." I knew the routine, design, print, distribute, you know, market. So I had his whole, and it was all wrong. So I ended up having to redo everything, reprint it, and I paid for it. Obviously, you know, you pay for the mistakes, right? But to this day, now I will never print anything without looking at it and making sure at least it's in the same year, for sure, right? We're in 2017, right?
We are, yeah.
I would say probably one of the bigger ones was there was actually the Boy Scouts of America have their oath, and we were carving it into a piece of stone, huge piece of granite, and they actually fabricated it missing a word, and so they actually had to refabricate it again and put it in, but it was too late before the event, so we actually had to make it kind of a game and see if any of the Boy Scouts noticed what was missing.
So, a lot of printing mistakes. Good. Any other questions?
That's good.
I think that was a great question. Do you use any technology, whether it be low tech or high tech, in just preventing failures? Is there kind of a catch net before you actually fall down on your face or lose a client, lose some money? What systems do you have in place to prevent?
Spell check is the greatest invention known.
Use
Use it.
How about you,
Okay.
check?
The funny thing is sometimes
check.
spell check doesn't even work. So
No.
no, I think quality control of anything you're putting out, having another set of eyes on it, I would say that's pretty low tech, but that's probably the best thing that you can do.
Yeah, I always run everything by my clients first. Make sure they look at it, and I always get an approval. Like, I need you to approve this via email, letter, something. Send me something. I need you to say that it's okay to go, you know? And then sometimes they'll say, yes, it looks good, and it's not.
wrong.
And I'm like, did you see that? Oh, I was so mesmerized by the design. I'm like, no, it's you have to read that thing. So you always have to have multiple people looking at it. And in my, you know, in creative, I look at it, Jay looks at it, Marcos looks at it, the guys in the back look at it. And if somebody misses it, then it means it must have been really, really subtle. But hopefully nobody else catches it. Like Imp Sire, right? Misspelled your tagline.
Okay.
He didn't even notice that. We ran that for like months. He was like, you spelled inspire wrong. I was like, no, you proved it wrong. I'm just doing this, you know? It's yours. You looked at it.
Right.
And he yelled at me. I'm like, come on, dude. Pay attention. Pay attention. So I fired him as a client. So don't be afraid to fire your clients when they're wrong. Because they'll do it to you, right?
That's right.
100%. Power to the creatives.
Good. Good. All right.